You have probably heard the phrase, if you die in your dream, you die in real life. I have always been skeptical of this phrase. I've never thought that phrase was logical. How does a figment of your imagination cause your mortal self to die? I kept believing that a dream was a dream, and nothing in your dreams actually happened unless it was some sort of flashback. But that all changed when I decided to create my own sleep experiment. Because of that experiment, I now believe that it is possible to lose your life from a terrifying experience in your dream. Do you want to know my story? Go ahead. Read on. But you might regret knowing of my experience. I have always had a scientific mind. I analyzed everything and thought of other possibilities before I came to a conclusion. Thus, I was an honor roll student. Straight A's in all of my classes except gym. Boy, how I hated physical activity. Anyways, because of my highly inquisitive, scientific mind, I have always been a skeptic of many theories and superstitions. No matter how much proof there is to back up a theory, I know that eventually, there will be a factor that completely destroys that theory. You could say I'm a little crazy because Isaac Newton's laws of motion are extremely accurate, but that's just the way I see the world. So now you know why I don't believe how the phrase if you die in your dreams, you die in real life could possibly be logical. But of course, my scientific mind decided to test it. For 1 week, I decided to do nothing but watch horror films and read creepypasta to trigger paranoia and cause nightmares. Hopefully, I would trigger a nightmare that causes me to die, and eventually wake up, thus disproving that superstition. And so this experiment began. Sunday, June 3rd, 2012. So today, I spent over 10 hours watching classic horror films and reading creepypasta. I have to admit, the stories were quite unnerving, but I didn't find them that scary. However, before I went to sleep that night, I couldn't help but think that there was someone out there looking for me. I finally settled down and went to sleep. I woke up in a dark room that reeked of human decay. I was tied to a wooden slab, and I realized I could not even struggle. That's when I saw a shadowy figure in the corner of the room. "Don't even bother struggling," the figure said, with a voice that sounded raspy and crazed. "I injected you with a serum that causes temporary paralysis." At this point, I was panicking. I kept trying to struggle even though I knew it wasn't possible because I was temporarily paralyzed. I kept trying and trying and trying, but it was no use. I was immobilized. That's when the figure turned towards me. He slowly moved forward and pulled out a knife, possibly getting ready to gut me alive. That's when I saw his face. I woke up. Unfortunately, I woke up before I could be killed in my nightmare. But I will never forget that nightmare. It was so lucid. It was almost like it was real. It felt too real. And that face was just so frightening. That figure had the eyes of a demon. They seemed to stare directly into your soul. His skin wasn't pale, like most psychotic murderers, but it was more blackened. It appeared as if his face was smeared with blackened makeup. But of course, it was all a dream, right? That thing couldn't possibly be real. At least that's what I thought. Monday, June 4th, 2012. I spent another 10 hours watching horror films and reading creepypasta. All of it seemed very far-fetched. Especially Slender Man, who I knew could not possibly exist. And slasher films tend to over-exaggerate the psychopathic tendencies of murderers. However, that same feeling of paranoia continued to course through my veins. I still managed to settle down. This time, it was many years into the future. It was proven that there is life on other planets, and their technology was millions of years ahead of human technology. They decided to invade. Humanity was desperate. We ran frantically, hoping to gain shelter from the oncoming alien invasion. I kept hearing laser rifles being blasted everywhere, and I also kept hearing a droning sound, possibly the sounds coming from the extraterrestrials' vessels. To humanity's dismay, we were not safe. They had found us and captured every one of us. I blacked out and woke up in what appeared to be a science laboratory. I saw many people being experimented on by the extraterrestrial beings. That's when I saw a bright white light. I woke up too early once again. So far, this experiment seems to be failing. I could never stay asleep to the point where whatever was coming at me would eventually kill me. Since this experiment lasted a week, and considering how lazy some people are when reading long stories, I've decided to cut out some of my journals and skip ahead to the final night of the experiment. After all, I don't think you, the reader, would want to read a week's worth of dream journals. Saturday, June 9th, 2012. It's the final day of my experiment. I have spent 60 hours of my life watching horror films. Time to go for another 10. This time, however, I never felt that unnerved this time. Since I began doing this experiment, I have gradually become less and less freaked out by horror films and creepypasta. So falling asleep was easy this time. It was a bright summer day. I was hanging out with a bunch of friends, mainly playing games and talking about our lives. That night, we decided to dare each other into performing dastardly stunts. One of us jumped out of a third-story window, another prank called the vice principal of our school. When it was my turn, they decided to dare me to run through the local cemetery and back, and repeat this action 3 more times. So I ran through once, twice, 3 times, and that's when I blacked out. I woke up in the same dark room as the one in my first nightmare. I was tied up to that same wooden slab. The room still reeked of human decay. It didn't look much different from before. I also realized that I was able to move, well, hypothetically, because I was practically immobilized by being tied up to the wooden slab. So I began to struggle. My actions caught the attention of the same figure, who was standing next to what appeared to be a small laboratory. He turned towards me, staring me down with those same unnatural, demonic red eyes. "You woke up?" he said, still using that crazed, fearsome rasp. "Too bad. I haven't finished the serum yet." I panicked. He was going to inject me with that same paralysis serum, thus suppressing my ability to struggle. I couldn't believe myself. I was still struggling to get free even though I knew it was no use. But I guess it's human nature to want to be free. That's when I felt a shock. He violently injected the needle into my neck. I screamed in agony as the syringe pierced my spine, allowing the serum to flow freely and disable my nervous system, completely immobilizing me. "Now, where were we?" he told himself, grabbing his cart of surgical tools. The last thing I heard was a demonic chuckle and the word "sweet dreams," then I felt an extreme shock of pain through my chest as he stabbed me. I woke up. I was celebrating to myself because the experiment was successful. I managed to disprove the superstition that dying in your dreams makes you die in real life, at least that's what I thought. I felt a brief shock of pain through my chest. Then I noticed the rope burns around my wrists and ankles. I also felt serious pain on the back of my neck. But I never realized the vividness of my dream until I took a look at my chest, and right there was a giant scar, right above the location of the human heart.